Hey y'all, in this video I'm sharing 3 lessons from managing my time from running multiple businesses. I hope this is helpful. Let's get into it. Hey there, this is Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. So I help people start their nonprofits and raise money for their new nonprofits. And this video isn't just for nonprofit founders. This is for anybody who's trying to manage their time, whether they have multiple businesses, whether they have multiple projects running, family, all that kind of stuff. So last week I ran a free challenge. It was a training focused on nonprofit founders so they could stand in their power and help launch their nonprofit to success. And one of the questions came up was, how do you balance it all? Or what do you do with your time when you have so many things going on that you want to devote your time to, but you really need to invest time in your nonprofit? How do you manage all of that? And I thought it was a really insightful question, and I figured it'd be best to answer it in a YouTube video so other people could hear the answer that I gave as well. So this is my experience, but what I'm sharing today, actually, I want to look at it a couple different ways. So how I come at it may surprise you, or some of the things that I say may surprise you. Maybe like, oh, I didn't look at it like that. But I thought I would offer my perspective because I have been in situations where I'm running a nonprofit, I'm working on a business, I'm working a full-time job, I have extracurricular things that I'm doing with church and in the community, and it's a lot. It really is a lot. So I want to share 3 strategies that have helped me better manage my time. And then at the end, I'm just going to share some insight, like I always do, about how to look at your time overall. So make sure you watch to the end for that as well. So the first thing I would like to say is, if you want to manage your time better, you have to take back control of your time and your schedule. One thing that I would do is I would allow anybody at any time to book time on my schedule, right? I didn't have any boundaries on when people could or could not book on my schedule, and I made myself available every time. So every time somebody wanted to talk to me or wanted to meet, I just said, okay, I just looked at my calendar and I made whatever I had available to them. And I realized that if I wanted to take control of my time, I had to take control of my time. I couldn't allow other people to do that because they're only going to do what I allow them to do. So if I kept my calendar completely open, then it was going to get completely booked up. So one of the things that I did was I instituted a policy where I have a no meeting Friday, where I have a calendar link. Some of you guys have used my calendar link if you want to do a free huddle with me. And you cannot book on Fridays for anything. My Friday is completely booked off, and I typically don't have any meetings scheduled that day. And it frees me up, first of all, to be able to think. Because when you're running from meeting to meeting, you don't have time to stop and think and process through all the things that you've done, like during the week, or all the things you talked about in your calls. But it also helps me actually get things done, right? I have blocks of time where I could do writing or I could do some planning to get stuff accomplished for my business. The other thing I realized was that I cannot give everybody access all the time. So even though I have a no meeting policy on Friday, people still are limited when they can contact me for certain things, right? So if you're booking a free huddle, you can only contact me or set something up on certain days. And when people ask of time of me, in most circumstances, you'll get that calendar link because I have to protect my time. And nobody really understands my schedule but me, right? So I have to be the one to advocate for myself. And one of the other things that I realized as I answered this question during the challenge was that my people pleasing, like a trait I have to people please, or I would feel bad if I wasn't available when somebody needed me, that was a trigger for me. That was the reason why I was just making myself so available, but I was also making myself miserable, right? Because when I have back-to-back meetings or I allow people to just commandeer my calendar, it is draining and it is frustrating as all heck. When you look at your calendar and it's from 9 to 5, it's call after call after call. It is so frustrating, right? It is so draining. And I realized that a lot of times I want to make sure that this person isn't upset with me, so I'll book with them even though I know it's not good for me, right? It's not good for my well-being to be in meetings for an 8-hour block, right? So I also had to address, and still have to address, that people-pleasing aspect of me, where I feel like I have to respond to people, or I have to make myself completely available. If you do not set boundaries with your nonprofit, with your business, or whatever areas of your life, and set a structure for your calendar, then people will overtake it and you will feel miserable. So the first thing I would say is just get control of your time, get control of your calendar, and be intentional about how you use your time and what you do with your time. Another thing I will add is that time blocking is really, really helpful. So when you take control of your calendar, you could do it in certain ways. So you could put a block. So my assistant has done this for me. She puts a block on my calendar. So 12 p.m. is lunch. So nothing can get scheduled on top of lunch. So whether I think about it beforehand or not, it's always there available for me, so that I have time to take a break. You can also time block for different things. So if you want to write, and all you want to do is just be able to write something down, then you can have a 2-hour block where you just decide that that's what you're going to do for that block. Or you want to develop social media content or something like that, then you can block out your time. Or if you're like me and you want to do more videos and things like that, I block out time on certain days where I know I'm recording and where I know I'm editing videos. So that time blocking has helped. I have not gotten it down to a science, full disclosure, and I'm still struggling with staying focused with time blocking. But one strategy I have seen other people talk about is buying the time cubes, or putting a timer on the screen and you committing to only doing what you said you're going to do in that time block, and have that timer like be your accountability measure through that time period. This is the second thing that has helped me prioritizing what to work on. This is a big one, and this is a big revelation that I've had over the past 2 years. I put a lot of value in being busy, but I wasn't necessarily productive, right? And so some of y'all who follow me have heard me say this, but I'm repeating it because it's so true. It was so profound once I realized and took a step back at what I was doing. So I thought that, you know, me working at night, so at times I have worked a full-time job and then worked with a nonprofit and then did stuff on the side with Boss on a Budget and did other things as well. So I was balancing, and have through time balanced a lot. And I thought that if I was working till 1, 2 in the morning, that it was a value. And even though when I would say that, when I would tell people, oh, I stay up 2, 3 in the morning, and they would look at me and be like, that's crazy. We're not night. You must really be a night owl. And even though it was kind of like a negative connotation when they were saying it to me, it was like a badge of honor for me. Yeah, I stay up, right? I'm a night owl. I work around the clock. And I realized about myself that it was a little dysfunctional. It was dysfunctional for me to take pleasure in staying up late, not getting enough sleep, not having a regular schedule, and feeling like I'm not worthy unless I'm working on something. And so one thing I would ask you to do when you're trying to figure out how to balance your time is figure out what you value and prioritize that. And if you look at where you spend your time, and if it doesn't align with what you value, then it's time to take a step back, because that's what I had to do. So the things that I value in my life is spending time with my family and spending time outside and giving myself quiet time to be able to think and to be able to dream and plan. I value those things, but when I would look at my time and what I was doing busy work. I was constantly on the computer. I was constantly doing things, right, that really didn't matter in the end and didn't impact any kind of bottom line for me. So I was just doing things here and there that weren't connected and didn't really produce much for me. So when I say prioritize your time, I mean figure out what you value. Figure out what matters to you. What are the things that bring you joy, right? And do those things and prioritize those things in your life and be intentional about doing that. And this can't be perfect, because there are some things that you don't like doing that you have to do in life. So I'm not saying only choose the things that make you feel good. Not saying that at all. But I'm saying that if you don't intentionally prioritize the things that do matter for you, to give yourself some time, some space for that, you're going to be miserable. And I'm speaking from experience. So Ask yourself, like, the things that I'm doing that makes me feel so busy, is it really amounting to anything? Is it really adding up to something that matters in my life? And when it comes to your nonprofit or your business or both, you got to ask yourself, are the things I'm working on impacting my bottom line? Are they moving the needle where I want to move the needle? So for your nonprofit, if you need to put things in place in order to raise money, are you doing useless things or wasting time looking at things instead of putting action into putting a fundraising strategy in place or creating a fundraising campaign, right? Are you spinning your wheels just consuming content and working on things and writing things out but never putting action into place? Are you doing that, and is that actually impacting your bottom line and moving you closer to your goal? If it's your business, are the actions that you're taking actually getting you to more money? Because that's the point of having a business, is the ability to make money. And if the things you're working on don't relate to that, if they don't connect to you bringing more money in, then why are you spending so much time on it? And I realized that some things don't directly connect. Like some things indirectly, if you work on it enough, may impact your bottom line. But if you're not doing enough things that help you get to the specific goal you have, then you're just doing busy work and you're wasting your time. So I realized in my life I was wasting a lot of time. I thought I didn't have a lot of time and I was frustrated because I felt like I didn't have a lot of time. But I realized that I was actually wasting a lot of my time. So I said all that to say, figure out what you value and make sure you prioritize that. And the third thing I will say that helped me manage my time better is having somebody to hold me accountable. So, and this is the thing that I don't think a lot of people who talk about productivity or time management, I don't think they talk much about this, but this was a game changer for me. So my forever pastor would challenge me on my schedule. He knew how busy I was, and when I would talk about all the things that I had going on, he'd be like, well, are you getting enough sleep? What time you go to sleep? And when I would say, oh, sometimes 2, 3 in the morning, he would just shake his head at me. But when I began to hit a brick wall, and he really began to work with me to understand like how I can get through what I was going through, he really challenged me to go to bed at a set time. He challenged me to go to bed at either 11 p.m. We compromised at midnight. But he challenged me to go to bed earlier, and he challenged me to do no screen time, and he challenged me to start fasting at night to give my body time to rest. And if I had not been open and vulnerable to share that information with him, then I would have never learned those strategies that I'm putting in place in my life right now. I would have never known to do those kinds of things because I didn't have anybody holding me accountable, because I isolated myself sometimes. And that's what we do, especially when we're busy. When we have so much going on, we actually don't have time for a lot of social interaction, or we don't have time to really sit in community with people or with mentors or people to bounce ideas off of. And so you begin to isolate yourself and you can't see yourself. You can't see the path you're on. And it's really difficult to have self-reflection when you're busy. It's really difficult to have self-reflection when there's a lot of noise happening around you. And it takes somebody else to be able to show you a mirror and say, I think you should take a look at this, or I think you should look at this differently. So the third strategy I will put out there is just have somebody hold you accountable, right? Have somebody who can give you a perspective on what's happening in your life. Have a mentor or have somebody who you can share information with so you're not isolated. And as I thought about this video, I was like, you know, Tiffany, this is not really a time management tip, but y'all, to me, it's a cheat code, because I would have continued on the hamster wheel and I would have gone on like dragging and dragging if he hadn't stopped me and pulled me to the side and said, how about doing this, right? So have an accountability partner and be open to doing something different. So I promised at the end of the video to share some insight that I think will be helpful as you're trying to manage your time. The first thing I'll say is you have to be able to challenge yourself. So I struggled a long time with managing my busy schedule. I struggled a lot because of what I said before around me not feeling worthy if I wasn't doing anything. And I was afraid. Like when I started to do my No Friday meetings, I actually was afraid to tell people that I was blocking off my calendar. It took me a month or two. Like I had blocked off my calendar, but I still kept meetings. Like I kept overriding it and putting meetings on my calendar because I was afraid to tell people that I was setting that boundary for myself. And I realized that I was just fighting myself. And so the piece of advice I would give you is be open to something different, even if it feels uncomfortable. It felt uncomfortable for someone to look at my schedule and challenge me on it. It felt uncomfortable because I felt like I was doing the right thing. I was working on my business. I was doing something what I thought was productive. I was doing something that was going to help somebody else. So I didn't think that me running myself ragged, there was anything wrong with that. But I needed to be challenged and I had to be open to it. And honestly, it took years for me to be open to it. It took years of prompting random things from my pastor saying, well, you should do this and you should do this, till I had to come to a point to say, okay, now I want to look at this, right? That leads me to my second point. This is all a work in progress. So I will not come on here and say I'm perfect. I still struggle with my bedtime. But I am in a place where I realize that I only do things that help me move my bottom line. I only do things that, first of all, bring me joy and things that I know will impact my goals. I'm very clear on what my goals are. I'm very clear on what I believe it will take to get to those goals. So the things that I spend my time on are directly related to those strategies and to those goals so I can reach them. And anything else is not prioritized. And that is real for me. So I encourage you to create your own goals and think about how you want to accomplish those goals and only do the actions that help meet those goals, right? Focus, streamline what you do so you don't have to feel like you're running around here doing busy work. All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding my perspective. Thank you for supporting Boss on a Budget. If you need help with starting your nonprofit, do not forget to visit me at www.bossonabudget.com. And I will see you in my next video.